Welcome to On Crisis. I'm your host, Joanna Doven, and I have dealt with a lot of crisis shit for the past 15 years or so as press secretary for a big city mayor and in running my company, Premo Consultants. And I think we all need to know more about how to handle crisis management. In the age of fake news, political discord, lightning fast news cycles, and social media shaming, it's essential that your business has a plan in place to handle crisis communications. We're going to have some really cool people on our show talking about behind the scenes stories in city government, in corporations, employee scandals. Ultimately, we're going to bring on people that will share stories with you to help you inform your own strategies. I promise we're going to have fun.
Very excited to have Mike Shebak joining us today on Crisis. Mike Shebak is somebody who we've worked with at Premo Consultants a lot. In fact, we rebranded their financial services company. Was it last year?
2 years now.
2 years. Oh my gosh,
Yep.
time's flying.
So fast, yeah.
To Clearstead, and we redid their website and really helped them navigate how to modernize their communications channels. As many of their clientele are inheriting money from, let's say, their parents or grandparents, and the importance of modernizing communications is critical to their business. So let's first set the stage here and talk about Clearstead. And I just want to begin by saying, for many Americans, there's been a lot of worry with regard to the financial markets. 2020 has been an unprecedented time because, of course, of coronavirus. And I know me personally as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, having a good financial advisor and accountant that I can trust became very clear how important that is this year. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a bit about your role at Clearstead first and set the stage for really what you're overseeing there.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks, Joanna. Good to be with you today. So I've been fortunate to be a part of Clearstead for over 14 years. Today, my role as Senior Managing Director is to help oversee. I actually run our institutional practice, but I'm also a member of the executive team at the firm, and so help run larger initiatives and opportunities on behalf of the entire firm, not just our institutional client division. Just a little bit about Clearstead. We advise a little over $25 billion for 150 institutions and as well as 500 individuals and families. By a lot of measures, we are one of the largest independent investment advisory, institutional and wealth advisory firms in the region, in the Midwest here, based in Cleveland. So it's nice that a Pittsburgh native would have a Clevelander on the podcast.
Hey, I'm all about controversy, so this is
there you
fits
go.
right in.
But my role again at the firm, I head our institutional practice, and I can talk a little bit about that. But really, it's helping to form messaging and branding and other, ways that we reach out to our clients and help them through difficult times, and also, proactively make sure that we're known in the marketplace.
And let's dive right into what happened when the pandemic hit and how your firm responded to clients. I mean, $20 billion, 25 of assets under management or advisement, rather, there's a difference there. Still a lot. And I can imagine people were just holding their breath. How did your firm navigate clients? Let's just talk about in the beginning of the crisis. What was your advice to them, and how important was it that you had a communications plan?
Yeah, so it was. I mean, it was unprecedented for everyone, right? Not just financial services or us. We were maybe a little more prepared than some to react to this environment because the nature of investments is that they go up and they go down. And so, regardless of pandemic or financial crisis from 2008 and 9 or other volatile periods that we've seen in the last few years, we're kind of always, programmed to play crisis management, if you will, with our clients. Mm-hmm. And I think, Joanna, before we even get into February, March, and April, it starts with setting reasonable expectations for your clients right up front. Making sure that, their goals are accounted for and their objectives are accounted for and their strategy around pursuing those long-term goals so that in times of crisis, you can rely on the strategy, on the soundness of that long-term point of view, and not have to do a lot of re-educating for why something is the way that it is, why the portfolio is constructed the way that it is, or why an investment policy is set up a certain way. And so if we've done our job and we've communicated over many, many time periods to our clients the importance of that, it doesn't make the crisis any easier, but it makes it maybe the point of reference or the context for why we then discuss that individual strategy, long-term planning strategy for an individual or a long-term investment strategy for an institution. It makes it, it adds the context. And so what we were really doing in March and April was kind of two-pronged. The external communication, proactive communication to clients was really, really important, but also internally to the firm. We needed to make sure that the professionals who were providing that advice, that were conducting, investment transactions, buying and selling investments or moving money around, that they all felt comfortable with the work from home, the viability of the firm, what was going on in the market so that they could do their job. And so Dave Fulton, who's our CEO, myself, and some others, we made sure that we kind of had a very purposeful two-prong type communication policy, or I guess strategy, if you will, that went out to both clients and internally. Specific, I'm looking at a screen right here just to remind myself, but on March 13th, so this was pre kind of shutdown, on March 13th, we sent out a very succinct, kind of simple message to every one of our institutional and private clients. And it talked broadly around the state of our firm, what we saw going on in the world, what we saw going on in capital markets and in equity markets in particular, and use it as an opportunity to remind them of a couple things: the long-term nature of their strategy, but also, and I think most importantly, that we were there to listen. Don't hesitate to reach out with questions, and also to inform our clients that they should expect to hear from us personally sometime in the next couple of weeks to talk through their specific situations. So that was kind of job number one, to get that, communication out. And then job two became, communicating that hand-to-hand combat, if you think of it that way, making sure you picked up the phone and called every single client, every single stakeholder, to make sure that they knew they were important to us, that we were listening to what their concerns were, and, reacting accordingly. If it was a simple, hey, thanks for checking in, we're all fine, we understand, no problem. But other organizations and individuals, they want to talk it through. And so at that point, we as financial professionals are balancing, the real technical, fundamental elements of capital markets and what's going on in the economy and what that's going to mean, with the emotional, behavioral type of tendencies that individuals have in those situations to want to sell all of their equities, or to, put all their cash under their mattress, so to speak. Right. And so, that there was a lot of those types of discussions, both the real technical on where markets and the economy are going, and also stick true to that strategy that we have talked to you about for years and years and years, and don't stray from it.
It's a long-term play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you have many, let's say higher value clients with a lot of money in the bank? Did you have a lot of them that actually just pulled money out, or were you able to convince? I mean, were there aberrations? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all type of solution for every individual and every institution. They're all different. So I'll give you two examples. One, and this was a common conversation with a lot of our institutional clients. Think about a religious organization, or a museum, or a college or university, or even a hospital, right? Hospitals were at the front ground of what was going on in this. And we have a number of hospitals that we work very, very closely with as their trusted fiduciary and advisor. And so the discussions centered more around this really kind of silly concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let's make sure that, and you're looking at me like, Mike, are you really bringing up Psych 101?
I like it. But, I like it. I mean, it is psychology, right? The markets are, yeah.
But what are those basic needs that a hospital or a museum or even an individual need to make sure are accounted for? It's having cash and liquidity on hand. And then let's not lose sight of what our long-term goals are. If we can have some assurance that near term our strategy has been accomplished, and we're going to be able to live through the next couple, 2-3 years maybe. And again, this was March or April. We really didn't know what was going to be the next 6 months, let alone the next 2 years. But if we can make sure that we have those needs accounted for, then then maybe we can stay true to that longer term strategy. But I would say, Joanna, on the institutional side, it's a little bit different conversation. On the individual side, I would certainly say that there were some individuals where they felt more comfortable, moving some of their equities to cash and kind of waiting a little bit to see what the world had in store for us. But by and large, I would say most clients stayed very true to their long-term approach. But that doesn't happen without pre-communication over many years up until that point, and then being a very good listener and listening intently in March and April to what our clients were asking us.
And I think one of the key things I tell clients who are dealing with a crisis is answering the question before it's asked. So anticipating the questions that your clients are going to ask you, and I mean, it's connecting. Now, connecting is a topic here, because look, we're connecting differently now, and it's the importance that you said of having a good, strong foundation with your clients became paramount in keeping them on the right track, ensuring they trust you. And I think, any kind of crisis, it really tests an organization's core. What are your values? What is your integrity? Are you really staying true to your mission? So did you see clients come to you? Did you get new clients during COVID because maybe those with whom you communicated were so happy about it and told their friends? Because I can tell you personally, I did not have that TLC approach for my advisor or my accountant, and it's led to a change for me, which really, really stinks. It's a pain in the butt to change these things, isn't it? Right? No, but you become tethered to your financial advisor, because nobody wants to have to change. It's stressful, right? Money is stressful.
It is stressful. I mean, changing a financial advisor requires a lot of moving parts, and that you develop not only long relationships with these trusted advisors, but then the paperwork and the moving of assets around can be cumbersome. And so there needs to be a real value there to do so. And so, to your question, yes, and we were fortunate early in the shutdown to still continue to attract some new clients to the firm. I think a lot of the reason why was because of the proactive outreach that we had, not just to our clients. Clients came first, and we were very consistent and very purposeful in how we reached out to every single client. But once we had done that, and we were able to spend some time and speak with prospects and those that we had been getting to know over time, and share with them some of the things that we had been doing with our clients, it definitely did resonate.
So tell me what you mean, like, give me an example of what was resonating. I mean, were you suggesting the implementation of certain strategies for certain institutions? Like I know, universities, I think of Carnegie Mellon, my alma mater, and I have a few friends that work there, and I can tell you they've tightened their belts drastically because there's simply less students that are going to be going there now.
Mm-hmm.
The travel restrictions are hitting the colleges that have a high foreigner population. So, any sort of, did you guys have to innovate in your thinking, or were you following best practices that really always existed in your circle of influence?
Yeah. So the answer to that is it was, our approach was different by client type. And so let me answer that by responding first to what we did with our institutional clients and prospects, and then with our private clients and prospects. On the institutional side, colleges and universities and foundations and even hospitals, their focus became very, very narrow, right?
Stay open or really make sure that our clients or those that we support, employees or students, whatever, are safe, right? Mm-hmm. Sure.
And so the thought, and even today, we're 8-9 months into this, really the attention of a lot of those institutions remains on those key priorities, and not so much on finding a new advisor. And we were not tone deaf to that. And so what we purposely did was not make it a point to reach out and prey on, that's a strong word, but distract prospective institutional clients with our story, right? Instead, what we wanted to do was make sure we were really, really responsive to our existing clients. And in fact, Joanna, what we did for some of those that we knew were specifically struggling really hard financially, was to identify those, and especially our hospital and healthcare related clients, and provide some financial support to them. That was we thought the right thing to do, the right way for us to.
What do you mean financial support? Just connecting them with the available loans, or?
Yep. So helping them think through CARES Act and other government types of relief that was available, but also recognizing that a lot of charitable funds opened at these organizations, COVID relief funds, or specific funds at hospitals to purchase supplies for masks and just things like that, or to help to support the payroll in some cases of their essential staff. And so we identified some opportunities to make sure that we were giving financial support to our clients as well where we could. Now the dollars in and of themselves, did they make a dent? Probably not, but it's important for us from a communication, a client partnership point of view, that we were not tone deaf to what they were going through and tried to help out any way that we could.
Did you develop any kind of cadence for how often you're communicating with clients? So obviously there's the individual outreach, which is arguably the most important, but then there's here's the frequently asked questions we're getting, and we should be blasting out this information, every 3 weeks. Did you guys create a cadence, or naturally, were you just more reactive because, well, nobody knew this was coming?
Well, so it was a little bit of both, but I'm glad you asked that, because one of the things that our investment research department did very early on, and I give a ton of credit to Carl Tippett, Anit Deshpande, and our research department, who Tom C, who quickly got together and created this concept that we called Research Corner. It's a 2-page front and back communication that was created and sent out daily, March, April, May.
Daily.
So every morning
Wow.
by 9 a.m. we had a bullet points, call it, 15 to 25 bullet points on what had happened the previous day, what the outlook was for the day. And it was a way for us to consistently share our message across the firm so that the professionals who are client facing are speaking about the same topics, the same data points, but also consistently get our message out and frequently to our client base, both our institutional and our private clients. Research Corner has since, reduced its frequency back to weekly, but it's still a very timely piece every Monday morning that goes out to a very wide universe. And again, it's helpful in creating that internal common language that we're all using. Because if you think about it, we have, I'll ballpark here, 25 or so client-facing professionals at the firm, touching 150 institutions, 500 families. There's going to be some variability in there of the message, but if we can work to create some sort of common, terminology and points of view around what's going on in the economy, that helps as a firm to make sure that we're being consistent in what we talk about.
And that's critical in communications, that when you're communicating externally, remembering that that's also an opportunity to communicate internally and make sure everybody's speaking with the same voice and really feeling like they're empowered. I can imagine, I personally know many of the Clearstead employees, and, I can attest that there's a personal passion that you all have in doing the job you do. It's not just a punch the clock job. So it's not surprising that you were able to pull together a daily communication.
Yep.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. I mean, I take zero credit. It's the the guys in our research department were amazing in pulling that together. I know it was a lot of work, but they did a great job. And another example, Joanna, just on our private client side, our tax and planning department pulled together near the end of March, beginning of April, pulled together some tremendous information around the CARES Act. And in particular, was able to supply that information to a number of our private clients, and where possible, where necessary, actually walk them through the small business loan process. And so that was just an example of us, recognizing.
Let me pause you there and ask, for many people, many colleagues of mine, their local bank would do that. Why did you all see that as a role that you should take with clients?
Yeah, well, it was the 800-pound gorilla, right, in the room at the time. It's what everyone was with a small business was looking at. And so we pride ourselves in being the first stop that our private clients come to ask for questions. And so we viewed it as our responsibility to make sure we understood all the implications of it, how to go through that process, also to understand, how it might impact them down the road from a tax perspective, perhaps. And I guess more so than anything, we just want to make sure that we were part of the discussion. We're being helpful in whatever way we could. And I think it just goes to our culture of wanting to be a helpful and a partner in a lot of different ways, not just on taxes, planning, and investments, but on any way that we can be helpful to those families and the individuals.
Yeah, and that's, the one thing that is so important for people to understand when it comes to financial planning. And those who are listening to this will probably understand this, but your tax, how you plan for your future, especially if you're a small business owner, or if you make, let's say, I don't know, I'm not going to tell you what I make, but if you make a decent amount of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to figure out that tax piece. How can I reduce my taxable income? And if you have a financial advisor here and an accountant over there, they're not talking to each other, you're left to figure it out. And that's not what I do.
Yeah.
So let's dive into sort of what's happening now. I mean, because this has been a momentous month. We have a new president. Hopefully there will be a new what am I saying? A new stimulus package that's
Mm-hmm.
passed soon. And the economy seems to be on the uptick globally, but things change every day. What are you seeing right now? And when you look at the past 9 months and you've been reading the markets daily, can you predict future trends at this point?
Well, I would say near term, extremely difficult. I think most of us would say, as we sit here today, we're surprised by how well markets have done recently.
Mm-hmm.
Just to add some context, and I don't have specific numbers, so please don't quote me on any of these. But since really Halloween, the equity markets have been very strong. At Halloween, we had kind of seen the last 2 weeks of October were somewhat negative for markets, and then we got some encouraging news about a vaccine, or vaccines plural.
Mm-hmm.
There started to become some clarity around the elections, and corporate earnings were strong, and so we've seen the markets do exceptionally well from here. And I guess my reaction to that is that was in and of itself somewhat of a surprise, or it has been a little bit of a surprise, I would say. And so to project the next couple months or even year is going to be difficult. But I would say this: there are some historical trends in investments that have continuously played out.
Mm-hmm.
Equities have tended to be a higher returning, more volatile asset class. Fixed income and cash is kind of that staple, that make you feel good type of investment. What if I was to predict one thing, and my compliance officer will need to make sure this is okay. It's that there's going to, because interest rates are so low with what the Fed and the government has had to do, and let's not dismiss the fact that in a very short amount of time, the Fed and the government pumped stimulus into our economy in a matter of weeks, whereas in 2008 and 2009 it took months. But the fact that they did that, it's worked, but we're going to have long-term implications of that. We're going to have higher taxes. We're going to have low interest rates for some time. And that's gonna have an implication on investors, both institutions and private clients. How do we balance safety with our investments, those traditional investments like bonds and cash? How do we balance that safety versus how do we find meaningful return? And so if there's any prediction, I guess it's that there's going to continue to be some changes and some different ways that investors look at their balancing their near-term needs and their long-term needs. Not to be a plug or a commercial, I guess I plug this for the entire financial advisory industry. That's all the more reason to have a very good dialogue, a very healthy conversation with your advisor around what your goals and objectives are, and make sure that expectations are very clear on both sides around the challenges that investors are going to face, and also, what the investor is looking to achieve with their investable dollars.
So how are you changing your investments right now? Have you made any changes?
Well,
Personally?
we adopted a chore system at home because right now the biggest detractor is the 3 mouths I have to feed. They're the most expensive things I have. So that would be kids 1, 2, and 3. So chores and that kind of thing is a good strategy right now for me to lower household expenses. But from an investment,
that's a good punt, Mike. It's a really good punt. Your compliance officer is going to be really proud of you on that. Good.
On a personal front, Joanna, I don't mind sharing. I'm a very long-term focused individual, so I purposely have not changed anything in where my focus has been. And I think it would be contrary for me to do so. I need to live and breathe what I speak to our clients, which is maintain a long-term perspective, and you need to ride through these ups and downs.
Any horror stories you'd like to share of competitors or clients that jump ship to you? And is there bad advice being given right now that people should be aware of?
I'm not aware of bad advice. I think horror stories. No, I mean, certainly not from clients. I think maybe a somewhat of relatable. I wouldn't call it horror story, but just something that's evolved through all of this has been the proliferation of these types of meetings, the lack of in-person to the virtual.
Let's be fair. Do you remember when, I guess 2 years ago, when we embarked on we worked together for about a year on the rebranding,
mm-hmm.
and we talked about the need for you all to start adopting these virtual connections with clients, because you do have clients all over really the world, especially
mm-hmm.
throughout the United States. And there seemed to be some hesitancy because, your business is so one-on-one, but I guess you've been forced to adapt. How has that been?
I will say, for me personally, because I enjoy seeing clients in person and being there, it was a personal hurdle to overcome. It was a little uncomfortable to be in this forum, but like anything else, we've gotten used to it. It's become more acceptable. Clients have been very, very understanding of virtual meetings as opposed to in person. I don't think I need to tell you or your audience, some of the pitfalls that we had to relearn about, telephone conference calls and video calls, and make sure you have a good background and all that kind of stuff. But to your credit, I would say that it admittedly, it has created efficiencies for myself, our firm, and our team. Pre-pandemic, I would have been in a car or traveling probably on average 2 days a week. And that's lost productivity on
Absolutely.
work.
Yeah.
And so now being able to jump on a video call and see an entire investment committee that you normally might have had to get in a plane and fly to, obviously there's a huge amount of time saving there, but it does require you, not just institutional, but also private client. It requires you to reach out in different ways, right? Make sure that relationship isn't missed. Make sure that you're very aware of what's going on in their world. And it's not that it's more work or it's a burden, but it's a change of habit to make sure that you're reaching out and letting the folks know that on a personal level, you care about them as much as on a client and professional level too. So that's been something that we've had to talk about and really enforce throughout the firm.
A few more questions before we get going.
I was going to say just the other thing that I wanted to mention in all of this, that was probably the biggest challenge, the client work, the client communication, the outreach, the advice in a trying time like the pandemic has been. That was far easier and far more natural for us than I think some of the internal communication. And I think we've done a really good job. Our head of human resources, Jane Battis, has been great at just kind of making sure that we're thinking about, work from home guidelines and in the office protocols. But it's really tough to maintain a culture when you're not together. And
Right.
so things such as frequent firm-wide phone calls, more consolidated team-based calls, really the emphasis of more frequent communication has been really, really important. And then making sure that you're consistent, but also knowing that you're going to probably satisfy some people with policies and suggestions, and some are not going to share the same point of view. And so that has probably been, if there's a horror story, I wouldn't call it a horror story, but probably the most challenging thing has been that just managing a firm and a team of professionals through an unprecedented time period.
Yeah, because I can imagine everyone has different communication styles too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone. I'm sure you could probably put them in sectors like the accountants are a certain way, maybe the financial, right? So the importance of having SOPs on here's how often we're going to communicate together and with which teams, and here's how often you're going to communicate to your clients. I can imagine that's important to keep everybody like just focused on performing the task that's going to give the best value to the clients.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys completely virtual now, or are you going back in soon?
Well, so we've had
what's happening in Ohio? I'm only following Pennsylvania and
Ohio. Well, I'm not the best to ask. I don't stay completely. I believe if you're an essential business, you can be in the office. I know we had individuals in the office today. I'm at home today, but we have been open really since the end of June. Individuals, professionals, and others coming into the office as they feel comfortable. And I think I'm proud of our firm and our professionals and how they've managed this environment. Certainly they've been very open and sharing points of view and suggestions on work from home or in the office. But the mutual respect that everyone has for one another to listen, you got to make a choice, and we want to get the job done, and I'm going to respect your decision has been really good. And I think that comes from good leadership from Mr. Fulton. And, it's still going to be a challenge going forward, just as things have spiked here recently, but we're getting through it.
Yeah. I mean, especially tough. And we're a woman-owned firm. We have all female employees. We have a few subcontractors that are males, but I'm a mom. My key employees are moms, and what I've seen, which has been interesting, is in the beginning when we had to work from home, everybody was happy about it. Like, sweet, less commute time. I feel like I can sort of just have more productivity, and now I can tell you my employees are begging to go back into the office. They're like, when can we go? And that just happened like in the last month. We'll go back in January.
Gotcha. Yeah.
We're going to do January. So two more questions, and then I'm going to let you go. This has been a great conversation. How did you guys plan on sort of telling the story to your audiences on how you did this? Do you see importance in sharing the best practices that you guys have innovated on and created when it comes to communicating during a crisis?
Yeah, so that's a thoughtful question. I can honestly say I don't know that we've discussed how we would share this outside of our client or prospect base, but I would tell you that selfishly, we as a company make sure that we are always reminding our clients of what we've done, of what we're doing. And so I think we do a pretty good job of, laying out objectives for the year, making sure that then the client meets those objectives for the year, but then coming back to that consistently and saying, remember, you as an organization or individual did this thing, and we helped you here. So that feedback loop, or that continual feedback is kind of ingrained in what we do anyways.
Right.
I think, Joanna, there probably is an opportunity for us to document what we did do, and put together a story of sorts that
Right.
talks about how we as an investment advisory firm or professional services firm, felt our way through this problem. Some of it was structured, some of it was gut feel, some of it
Right.
was luck or unluck. But we could probably learn a lot by going back and creating something like that.
Well, for the audience, the name that we came up with, Clearstead, was based on two fundamental core principles that the team has, which is providing clarity and steadfastness. And you guys certainly have done that for your clients during the pandemic. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you for your time. And, I do have one more question. So charitable giving,
Mm-hmm.
it's time to do that. The day of giving is, I think, Tuesday. Because you work with a lot of nonprofits, what's that going to look like for them? Do you suspect there will be less, and how, what's going on there?
So this is a really good question. I think, I know that a lot of our clients and a lot of nonprofits are really pushing that right now, especially before year end. What I would say is that there may, and this is where I admittedly don't have all of the expertise, and I'd want to lean on some of our private clients and accountants, but I believe that there are some pros and some cons to doing it in this calendar year. I would advise your listeners to consult their tax advisor, but given how some of the tax laws may be changing this year and into next year, it's my understanding there may be some benefit to waiting the next year. And so that could potentially cause some of the year-end giving to be less robust than maybe what some nonprofits are hoping for.
Well, maybe we'll have Mr. Marino on to give us his insight. I'm interested in it. I can tell you we have a couple of nonprofit clients who are concerned, and what we've told them is, and they happen to be busier because of COVID. They're providing essential service. One works east part, towards Philadelphia, and provides domestic abuse support at a very large scale for a very vulnerable population. And they've seen their numbers skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
People are trapped home, they're drinking more, and the economy hasn't been good to a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
especially service workers. So they think it's a crisis right now. Like, what if our giving is down? And we're saying, no, it's an opportunity to communicate. This is how badly you're needed.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a certain way to leverage the increased demand to reach more donors.
Yeah.
So we've launched a campaign for them. But I can tell you personally, I haven't even thought, I have to figure that out, what I'm going to do. And there was just an article in the Wall Street Journal that I didn't get to read yet yesterday. Did you see it? It was all about, it was a pretty big spread. It was about sort of tax planning end of the year.
Mm.
And I wanted to read it before this call, but life got in the way. As I was saying, I had a little personal crisis this morning when my daughter broke her wrist. But we're back. We're back and we're doing the podcast. Thank you so much for your time. We'll connect again for sure, because this is always a topic, of course, the financial markets, and it's top of mind for so many people. So we appreciate your time, Mike.
You're welcome, Joanna. Thank you.
Okay. Have a great day.